everyone, welcome to Two Car Pros. My name is Ryan, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to change the oil and filter on a 1993 Suburban 2500 with the 7.4 liter 454 engine. So this guide would also work for any of the heavy-duty trucks of this era. Basically, from the front door forward, all the trucks and the Suburbans, Tahoes, those are all the same vehicle. So this guide works for the truck as well, as long as it has that 454 engine. Now the vehicle I'm working on today happens to be four-wheel drive. The same thing applies to the two-wheel drive version. I just point the difference out as I go along, but it'll work for either. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. So before we get started, I'm going to show you where we are going to be working today. So come underneath the vehicle, and then right here is our oil pan drain bolt, and up to the left from that, here's our oil filter. Now, on the four-wheel drive, it has this apparatus that kind of moves the oil filter up above the front drive shaft. If you don't have four-wheel drive, then it's just going to hang, most likely, straight down right here like a normal big block. But it has this apparatus because we have the four-wheel drive model. But the process is the same, and I'm like 90% sure the filter's the same too. So the next thing we're going to do is take a 14mm socket, and we're going to remove that oil pan drain bolt here. Ooh. Typically you just need to break it loose, and then it'll remove by hand quite easily. Make sure you have some eye protection on and your catch pan ready to rock. There we go. Perfect. And we're just going to let that completely drain out until it is just barely dripping. So you join me over on my workbench now, and I have the drain bolt here. It's all nice and cleaned off. There's a little magnet on the end. You really got to clean, really well with a nice clean towel. And you can see the washer on there. This one's in okay shape. You could probably get away with reusing this, but if this has a problem, I want to know now. So I'm actually just going to replace it so you can just force those off. Now, a lot of people use the old school style, copper washers, and there's technically nothing wrong with those, but I've found these on the internet, and I really like these. They're a metal washer. I think they're made of zinc, and they have a nice little rubber insert in there. And I'll leave a link down below in the description to these. They're not very expensive, and you get a whole bunch. And that can just go on. Oh, look at that. That fit just perfect. And that is going to create a nice seal for us that isn't going to leak, because if this is leaking, you'd be surprised how much it can leak. You can lose like half a quart or maybe even a full quart a month, depending. I've had that happen before where people bring me cars and they say their car's leaking oil like you wouldn't believe, and this is the culprit, is a mechanic or somebody, or maybe themselves, reused an old washer and it was no good. So I always just like to replace these as a precaution so we can go back to the truck. So looking at that mating surface, we can just clean that off. Maybe use a little brake clean or carb spray if it's really bad, but mine's not too bad, so I don't think I need it. And we can replace our drain bolt, and we're just going to snug this down. And I could not find a torque spec for the life of me. Honestly, you don't really need one for this anyway. Just wrist height is probably good. Like that. I wouldn't go any tighter than that. Remember, it's just holding oil back. It's not holding anything to anything else, so it doesn't need to be like Hulk tight or anything. If I had to guess, it'd be like 11 foot-pounds, maybe 13. It's really not that tight. Don't go crazy on this. So here's our oil filter that I showed earlier, and it's in kind of a bad spot. Oil's going to go all over the front diff and the U-joint for the front drive shaft, and that's just kind of unavoidable. You could try mitigating it with cardboard or towels, but I'm going to leave it as is for instructional purposes so you can see what I'm doing, or as best I can. And again, if you don't have four-wheel drive, this part's really easy for you. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll be able to get it off by hand, but sometimes they're really stuck on there. In this situation, sometimes I'll just grab a big pair of channel locks to help me out. But usually you just need to break it loose. Woo! That one's on there, man. Well, someone with the strength of Zeus put that one on, so I'm going to try an oil filter socket. Okay, so I've struggled for a bit with this oil filter off camera. Honestly, it took a lot of effort to get this loose, so hopefully yours isn't as difficult. Putting that socket on really made the difference for me. I don't know who put this on last time, but they had the strength of Zeus. Maybe it was the Incredible Hulk working down with a Jiffy Lube, but yeah, it was on there pretty good. Took me a while. I actually had to go on the top side to kind of get a ratchet on my oil filter socket, but hopefully it's loose enough now, yeah, that I can get it with my big pair of channel locks here and have a catch pan ready, because it's gonna start dribbling. And I sincerely hope that yours was a lot easier than mine. I hope mine was the hardest. Even now, this is hard to turn. It's like they super glued it on. It's crazy how difficult this is to turn. There we go. There's the ticket. So usually, you just loosen it until it does that, and then it's just gonna make a big old mess all over that U-joint. Well, that's technically a pinion seal, and I'm just gonna wait for that to stop dribbling to try to mitigate the mess best as possible. Alright, once it's kind of slow to this, we can just get it off the rest of the way. It's going to make a mess. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It helps if you tilt it up when you take it out, because it's like a cup. There you go. Now we can just guide it through our opening here and remove that, because this thing probably holds at least half a quart of oil. So here's our old filter stuck on with incredible force. I'm actually gonna have to get this socket off later. If you're wondering what the part number is, it's 909. I'm gonna do my best to leave that down below in the description for you. Now that might not work for you, because not all oil filters have enough facets where this 12-sided socket, or however many sides are on here, can't remember, can grip onto there. Sometimes they're like ribbed, where it's just like a bunch of bumps, and it's really not gonna work for that. So that's why I like the big pair of channel locks. It works on everything, and it, you know, worked on this obviously, at least at the end. So here is our replacement unit. It's made by Wix. The part number is 51060, and I will put a link down below in the description to this guy. So what we're gonna do is pop it out of the box, and before you even leave the store or the return window closes on wherever, make sure it has this rubber seal on it, because if it doesn't, the thing's not gonna work. So make sure you do that, and then we can just compare it to the old one, make sure it's the same size, the same threads, and I've done this a few times on big blocks, and I happen to know this is the right filter. And I like Wix. Wix, decent brand. So what we're gonna do next is get some oil on the end of our fingertip, and we're just gonna apply that to that seal. You can use old oil or new oil. I hear some people screaming old oil won't work, but it will. As all you're doing is creating a nice seal, just so that O-ring, not O-ring, but seal doesn't go on dry, because it's just rubber onto metal. Now, I have a lot of people always yell at me that I don't fill oil filters, and usually I don't. On this car, the oil filter usually goes straight up into the block like a regular big block does, and you can fill the oil filter if you like. But on this one, it does this. This is how it goes on. So how are you gonna do that? All the oil's gonna fall out of it before it even meshes up to the block. So don't worry about that too much. Besides, where does the oil go first? Right here, I'm holding it. So it gets filled within a second of the engine starting. I wouldn't worry too much about that. So we can go ahead and clean the mating surface and replace this guy. So what I'm gonna do next on the mating surface for the oil filter, just up there, I'm gonna grab some brake clean, carburetor cleaner, something like that. And I'm just gonna spray it on that surface. Hose are down good. And then I'm just gonna use a shop towel. I'm just gonna clean that surface off, because there could be all kinds of ickies on there, and it'll prevent sealing, and you might have it leak, and that's sort of the opposite of what we want. And it's okay if the brake clean kind of dribbles down, and, you know, might help us clean off all the oil that's spilled everywhere that we're gonna have to clean off anyway. Yeah, there we go, looks pretty good. So we can grab our oil filter and slink it up there. Put that on the threads, making sure we don't cross thread it. You'll know if you cross thread it, because it'll just get way too tight, way too early. It should spin on really freely like this. See how nice that spins? And then it's going to get tight, obviously, and we're just gonna tighten that on. I don't want to go crazy. As tight as you can with one arm if you're pretty strong. Two if you need some help, but don't use any tools. Or usually it's like it gets tight and then 3/4 additional turn. That's kind of the rule of thumb. As long as it doesn't leak, I say. I think that's excellent. So now you join me topside of the engine, and we can remove our oil cap. Just turn to the left. There we go, remove from our valve cover. Then I'm going to grab a nice clean funnel and put it right there for me. So I'm going to go ahead and add our oil, some 10W30 full synthetic. I like using the full synthetic so I can get a little bit more mileage out of oil changes. Go about 8,000 miles on the full synthetic there. Truth be told, you could use 5W30. It probably doesn't matter that much. These older trucks don't really seem to care, but 10W30 is the official specification, so I have to say that. And I'm going to go ahead and put 6 quarts in and then check the dipstick, because it is easier to put oil in than to, well, take it out. And I believe the capacity is 8 quarts, but that seemed kind of high. I thought 6, maybe 7. 8 seemed like a lot, even for this big of a truck, but we're just going to check. We're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So with 6 in, I'm just going to go ahead and check it. Wipe my dipstick off. Slink it all the way in. Now we're going to look at it. So it might be a little tough to see, but the oil level is just about there at the end of my thumb, so I think I'm going to put another quart in it. So we can go ahead and remove our funnel and replace our cap here. And then I like to let it run for about 45 seconds, and everything should be nice and filled out, and we'll be able to see if we need to add any more oil. Probably. During that test too, I was looking at the oil pressure, and the oil pressure is perfect. So let's go ahead and check the dipstick again after we wait for the oil to fall back into the pan just a bit. So maybe like, wait a minute. All right, let's check it again. We can see the oil levels dropped actually quite a bit. It's right here where my thumb is. It's a little tough to see on camera, but it's right there. So I'm going to go ahead and put another quart. Alrighty, I just added another quart. See where we're at. It might need to. It might take 8. Let's see. So you can see right there between my thumb, between this dot and this dot, is the oil level. So yeah, you probably could put 8 in here and be totally fine. So it's between 7 or 8. Older truck like this, I wouldn't mind putting 8 in there, just because it's probably going to go through it anyway. So yeah, I'm going to go with 8 on this one, guys. So after you're done, even if you don't have a lift, you can just kind of look at the ground to make sure that it is not just gushing oil out of the thing. I like to come underneath it and then look, get a visual confirmation that the drain bolt is holding perfectly and the oil filter isn't leaking either, and everything is bone dry. So this is perfection. So that's how to change your own oil on a 1993 Chevy truck with a 454. It is really easy, it's pretty old school and awesome, and these trucks are still out there on the road, and it's important to keep them running. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful at all, please consider giving a like or subscribing. It really helps the channel out.